Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Crit and Crit. I am Axion.
And I'm Sint.
And we are resuming Final Fantasy V as we return to the world of Harry Potter. We are now on Book 3, Prisoner of Azkaban.
This was actually the first Harry Potter book I ever read, because I was introduced to the series right after it came out, and I requested the first 3 at the library, which were all on hold, so you got what you got. So I got this one first, and so I kind of have the fondest memories of it, to be honest.
This is actually about when I entered the series as well. I mentioned way back in our first couple of episodes for the very first game, or very first book rather, that I got into the series as a result of the movies, and I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was Prisoner of Azkaban that had just come out when I started investigating the series.
Possibly. I actually don't really remember the movies super well. I remember Prisoner of Azkaban is the one that bothered me the most, because, well, they cut out... As I recall from watching the movie, they didn't really mention what I considered to be a major plot detail, and you kind of had to piece it together, whereas, you know, in the book, it was a little bit different. Granted, I was also, like, in 6th grade at the time, so very specific tastes.
Right.
But I'll get into which detail I think they'd omitted after we go through the plot recap, as is our usual structure at this point. So, we follow the formula pretty well. We just late summer vacation, Harry is getting ready to go back to school. This time, instead of, you know, being broken out by the Weasleys and having his mail stopped by Dobby, he is getting letters. And, well, he gave his phone number to Hermione and Ron at the end of the school year, and Ron is the first one to try and call him. Ron has never used a phone before.
This ends
so that doesn't go well. So Harry's kind of cut off from them again, and then just resort to, you know, they just resort to Outpost, so he still actually gets birthday cards for once in his life. With his letter from Hogwarts, though, he also has a permission slip. If your guardian signs his permission slip, you can take occasional field trips or vacations to the Wizarding Village, Hogsmeade. Harry knows there's almost no way that Uncle Vernon will ever sign it, but he ends up making a deal with him. Aunt Marge is coming to visit. Well, if I'm on my best behavior, will you sign this? Because, I mean, I could slip up and let her know I'm magic. Yep, just don't mention any of that, behave, and I will sign your permission slip. As you might guess, it doesn't go well. Marge is terrible. Literally insults him at every turn. Finally pushes Harry over the brink to the point where he loses control of his magic, and there's a mishap. She starts inflating like a balloon, and the Ministry of Magic has to come in to fix her. So Harry runs, because he assumes he's going to be expelled.
Yep, as I was about to say, the last time there was a magical mishap in Harry's vicinity, it did not end well for him.
Even though that time he actually didn't do anything, which I believe we talked about last time.
We did.
So, Harry is on the run trying to figure out what to do, accidentally figures out how to summon the Night Bus, which is just a wizarding bus that will come and pick you up if you know how to signal it. He notices right before he gets on the bus, though, that there is a large black dog watching him, but when he looks again, it seems to be gone. So he, anyway, takes the bus to Diagon Alley, and as he exits the bus, he finds Cornelius Fudge, the Minister of Magic, waiting for him. So, you know, imagine you are 13, and, like, the Secretary of State is waiting at the bus stop to pick you up after you think you've just broken the law. How would you react?
Nice knowing you, everyone.
Yeah, to Harry's surprise, Fudge doesn't seem too angry with him, tells him everything is smoothed over, doesn't really address Harry's question about, like, wait, I'm not being expelled because the last time this happened I was told, oh, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. Just stay in Diagon Alley for a few days. And, to note, Harry had seen something on the news about an escaped murderer named Sirius Black, but it was all the Muggle news, so who cares?
Which is a name we have seen once before, but it's been a while. Sirius Black was mentioned at the very beginning of the first book as the person from whom Hagrid acquired the flying motorcycle.
Yep. So, Harry stays in Diagon Alley. Ron and Hermione show up to get their school supplies, hang out with Harry for a bit. Hermione gets a cat named Crookshanks, while Ron is getting some medication for Scabbers, who he'd mentioned has been looking a little sick on their entire little trip because Mr. Weasley had won some gold at work and used it to take the family on a vacation to Egypt so they could visit their brother. And, well, Crookshanks the cat takes an immediate disliking to Scabbers, which basically sets the tone for the year of Ron and Hermione being at each other's throats because of their pets, and Harry having to play mediator. While they are there, Harry happens to overhear Mr. and Mrs. Weasley talking about not telling Harry something, which Mr. Weasley then goes ahead and tells him anyway. Don't go looking for Sirius Black. He is an escapee from Azkaban and believed to be looking for you. Harry's kind of surprised that Mr. Weasley specifies that he should not go looking for an escaped serial killer, but yeah, you know.
There is a reason for this, but not one that Harry is told at this time.
Yep. So, they get on the train, and the only available compartment has who they assume to be the new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, who is asleep at the time. Also on the train are some new guards for extra security at Hogwarts. Dementors from Azkaban, creatures that feed on emotion. So, another side effect of the Dementors is that they basically, just being around them kind of forces you to relive the worst moments of your life. Most who spend too much contact around Dementors lose their minds. So, Azkaban, again, is fully guarded by them. It is not a pleasant place to be, and you might recall, Hagrid got sent there for a couple of weeks in the last book.
Yep, and just that couple of weeks, he describes, both at the end of that book and in this one, as the worst experience of his entire life. And as we saw in the last book, Hagrid hasn't exactly had the happiest life. So, it says something that this is the experience that he describes as his worst thing ever. I mean,
it makes sense, because remember, the Dementors feed on emotion, and just their presence makes you relive the worst moments of your life, so if Hagrid hasn't had a happy life, they have plenty of stuff to make him go through.
Well, we didn't know that yet. That's explained later, a little bit later in this story.
Right. Yeah. So, but, the Dementors get too close to the students. Harry actually passes out because, well, for him, he basically remembers the night his parents died. But Professor Lupin manages to ward them off with what is later revealed to be a Patronus charm, which will kind of be important. So they go on through school year, starts as normal, everybody gets special schedules, Hermione's is insane, and basically physically impossible. And I don't just mean she's taking a lot of classes, I mean she is taking 3 classes at Mondays at 9. Physically impossible.
Yep. Harry and Ron multiple times point out, hey, is there an error in your schedule? You have these classes scheduled at the same exact time.
And she says, nope, it's fine, and gives no explanation. So that's fun. Anyway, so they're all taking divination because Hermione is taking everything, and Harry literally just picked what Ron did. And I think Ron picked at random. In divination class, they meet Professor Trelawney, who, likes to be very dramatic and has a tendency to see death in everything. McGonagall actually asks them when they come to Transfiguration right after that, is everyone okay? I've never not had a reaction from this. Oh, we just came from divination. Oh, which of you is dying this year? She does this every year. None of them has dived yet. You're fine.
Which is, I imagine, extremely relaxing for everyone to hear. Oh, it's just a teacher being dramatic.
We've never had one like that. Oh, right, Lockhart.
Yep, so the children are, for the most part, relieved and much of their fears assuaged. This is just an eccentric teacher. Life goes on as normal.
Yep. So Quidditch proceeds as normal that year, though the Dementors get too close to a Quidditch match. Harry sees the dog again, but because of the Dementors, he loses consciousness, falls off his broom, which flies smack into the Whomping Willow. Insult to injury, Gryffindor loses the game because the Hufflepuff Seeker catches the snitch like moments after Harry faints, but before he'd realized that he'd fainted. So,
This is incredibly annoying,
yep.
by the way.
Yep, his first match that Harry has ever lost. Gryffindor has lost before since he joined the team, but they were from, when he was unconscious in the hospital or the match got cancelled.
Right, it wasn't his fault.
Yep. So, Harry doesn't have a broom. And considering how much of part of his identity playing Quidditch is, that's a big deal. But Professor Lupin agrees to teach Harry how to fight Dementors using a boggart, which they had previously practiced on in class, is something that can take the form of your worst fears. And since Harry's worst fear at this moment would be the Dementors, which actually surprised Lupin. When Lupin had them fight them in class, he didn't let Harry face it because Lupin assumed that Harry's worst fear would be Voldemort, and the image of Voldemort would probably cause a mass panic in class, which he had to explain to Harry because Harry had assumed that Lupin didn't let him because he thought he couldn't handle it. It's like, no, it was a much more reasonable fear. But Harry learns gradually to use the Patronus Charm to ward off Dementors because he doesn't want to keep being helpless against them, which, that's a fair thing.
We do mean gradually, very gradually. Harry starts out not being able to conjure more than a thin mist.
Which is still something.
Yep, and Lupin tells him that for someone at his age and level of training and being so new to this particular spell, that the fact that he did anything at all is considered exceptional. For most people in his situation, the charm would either just straight up fail or produce nothing tangible.
Yep. So, Hogsmeade Weekend comes around, Harry can't go. Fred and George, however, have other plans, called, "Here's a piece of paper for you. It's called the Marauders Map. We have no idea who these people are, but we have been using this that we totally didn't steal. We stole it from Filch's office after we were getting yelled at for something or other. And we have used it to sneak around the castle for years. It's great. We don't need it anymore. We've got it memorized, and you need it more than we do. Here's how to use it. Have fun. See you in Hogsmeade." And at the top of it are written the names Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs. And this is the part that was not present in the movie that I recall. The identity of the Marauders. We discover it later in the novel, but I don't believe it's ever actually said in the movie.
It is.
Oh, it is? Okay, it's been a long time since I've seen it.
Lupin reveals it at the very end of the movie instead of shortly before the climactic scene in the book. Like he does in the book, rather.
Yes, but that causes a slight problem for me because, knowing who they were kind of feeds into something that happens at the climax, but we'll get to that. So, the map basically shows everyone at Hogwarts and where they are, which allows them to move around with where the teachers are so they don't get caught. Harry uses it to devise a secret tunnel into the basement of the candy store Honeydukes in Hogsmeade, which means he can actually go there. Which means he's there when Ron and Hermione stop in the Three Broomsticks for some butterbeer, and the teachers come in to talk. Which means Harry gets to overhear that Sirius Black is the reason his parents died. He was meant to be their secret keeper after there was a spell cast to to hide Lily and James Potter's location since they were already targets of Voldemort's. But Obviously, their secret keeper talked because they were found and killed.
And
So
to
now,
explain, the Secret Keeper is part of a complex and powerful charm that is cast over somebody that completely masks their location from any kind of detection and from any kind of revelation. They cannot be found unless the one person who is connected to that spell, besides the people it's been cast on, the so-called Secret Keeper, tells. Only if the Secret Keeper tells can the charm be broken.
Yep.
So, the only way, if they were truly under this effect, as we have no reason to believe that the people describing this are lying, would be if the Secret Keeper blabbed.
And well, this is a case of the proof is in the pudding. The Potters are dead, which meant someone found them, which means the Secret Keeper talked, and since, well, we know that Sirius Black was James Potter's best friend, who else would it be? So, we also learned that their old school friend, Peter Pettigrew, was killed by Sirius Black, confronting him after the Potter's death, and whatever spell Sirius cast blew up the street and took a bunch of muggles out with Pettigrew. The biggest piece they found of him was his finger. So, yeah, Black's in Azkaban now, or was, he escaped.
Yep, which is a remarkable feat in and of itself, given that we are later described the layout and functions of Azkaban. It is
It's Wizard Alcatraz, but they also suck all the joy out of you.
Yeah, it's a fortress located on an island, and I am really getting tired of this mazy dungeon.
Aren't you amazed by it?
No. Yeah, it's located on an island, well enough away from land that there's no reasonable expectation that someone should be able to swim back to land, especially someone who's been imprisoned for some time, tortured by the Dementors, and in the usual horrible conditions that we have come to associate with medieval-style dungeons.
Yep. So, that's feeding into things, but also happening during this is, well, one of their other classes, Care of Magical Creatures, taught by Hagrid, who is taking over the class for the first time. He was really ambitious with his first class and had them observing hippogriffs, which he had mentioned are very proud and will attack if insulted. Malfoy was not listening during this and insulted a hippogriff, which attacked him, predictably. As mentioned before, Malfoy is absolutely a Karen, who's never liked Hagrid, and, I will absolutely sue the school and try and get Hagrid fired, and maybe the animal killed in the process. And, well, the Malfoys can afford better lawyers than Hagrid can. So,
not to mention
that's
just
not going well.
Lucius Malfoy has his fingers in everything. I am seriously running out of doors Oh, there's a door there. Wow. Have I been missing this door this entire time? I have!
I don't know. Well... But, yeah. So, Hermione, on top of all of her other classes, has been helping Hagrid research for this hearing to try and keep his job and save Buckbeak, the hippogriff. Well, Hagrid loses the case. Tries to defend himself, and Hagrid is not the most well-spoken person. Plus, Malfoy's been playing it up. A lot.
Yep. Going around with his arm in a sling.
Getting special treatment. Yeah. So, well, later on through this, it's also revealed that, well, Black had gotten onto the school grounds and gotten actually into Gryffindor Tower because he had gotten a hold of the passwords. Because Neville, who could never remember the passwords, asked what they were in advance and wrote them down, and then lost the paper. So, yeah. Neville gets in trouble after, Ron wakes up to see Sirius Black standing over him with a knife, and that starts off a rumor storm, people searching the castle, and, well, wondering why did he not kill Harry. He was in the room. He had the chance. He was one bed over. Did he get the wrong bed? So on and so forth, etc., etc., etc. Well, as things go on, things will start to come to a head with this execution date for Buckbeak. I believe it is the day of finals. So Harry leaves his divination final after making some stuff up to try and pass it, because, you know, let's see a death omen, we'll usually pass the class, and as he's leaving, Professor Trelawney has an actual prediction that she has no memory of after when she's done with it, which is that Voldemort's servant will soon return to him. Harry tells her this, she doesn't remember it, and just says, yeah, it's fine, go ahead. And Harry leaves, and, well, they try to go down to talk to Hagrid, who actually doesn't want them there because he doesn't want them to see Buckbeak die. So the execution goes on, they're heading back to school, and, well, the Black Dog is there again, as is Crookshanks. So, they discover that there is a path in the Whomping Willow. When, Ron is dragged by the dog into the Whomping Willow, Crookshanks presses the knot to freeze the branches, they follow after him, and Ron reveals that the dog is Sirius Black. Sirius Black is an animagus, which is something they had learned about earlier that year in Transfiguration. He is, to note, an unregistered one, because, as Hermione points out, I researched them when McGonagall told us about them, and there are only 7 registered animagi this century. You're not one of them. Yeah, we did it behind everyone's backs, which, dangerous, but this basically sounds like what we've learned of these 4 kids. James Potter, Sirius Black, Remus Lupin, and Peter Pettigrew, who we now learn are Lupin is Moony, Padfoot would be Black, Wormtail is Pettigrew, and Prongs is Potter, because of their animal associations. Lupin is not an animagus, he is a werewolf. The Whomping Willow was planted because of him. The Shrieking Shack was built for him to go and transform into, because that way he wouldn't hurt anyone. So, his friends taught themselves to turn into animals so they could spend time with him. Pettigrew was a rat named Wormtail, Padfoot, a giant black dog, Prongs, as we later learn, is a stag. And that is relevant because that is the form that Harry's Patronus takes. And Harry figures that out because he knows that his father was Prongs. It is not mentioned like that in the movie, so it feels wrong to me of how that scene goes.
Yep, the movie does it the other way around, where the movie says, you conjured the stag Patronus because of your father's connection to the stag appearance. Therefore, that's how you know I'm telling the truth when I tell you your father was Prongs.
Yeah, which I think hits differently because of how the rest of the scene plays out. Harry and Hermione start heading back to the castle, but Dementors come and attack them, and they are saved by someone across the lake who Harry sees and thinks it's the ghost of his father sending a stag to protect him. They pass out and they wake up in the hospital wing, which is where we get a lot of explanations about everything else. Black has been captured, Ron's unconscious, Snape's about to get a major award for apprehending Black, even though Snape knows that Black is innocent. He's just always hated Black.
Yep,
so,
he doesn't care about doing the right thing or not, he's wanting to get a little bit of revenge.
Yep. So, while everyone else is out of the room, Dumbledore talks to Harry and Hermione and tells them that there is a chance that they can save everyone. They have about 3 hours. And then leaves. Harry's confused. Hermione takes out a necklace that she's been wearing called a Time Turner, which is how she's been getting to her classes this year. She was given permission to carry around a limited time machine to take an extra math class. Can we talk at some point about the Wizarding World's priorities with dangerous time travel artifacts?
There are other time travel artifacts?
I mean, if they're willing to give one to a 13-year-old girl who wants to take calculus, probably. You wouldn't give the only...
I got the impression, at least from the book version, that the reason that they were okay with giving her the Time Turner was because she would only use it for something so innocuous.
I'm gonna put it this way. Would you give me a time machine if I promised, cross my heart, pinky swear that I would only use to get caught up on my homework?
I wouldn't, but I get the impression Hogwarts would.
Because yeah, I was Hermione. I never got in trouble at school. I had really good grades. I would absolutely have probably pulled something like this so I could do time travel to take extra classes. I do not think I would be authorized to use time travel to take a math class, or any other classes for that matter. But Hermione breaks her word and uses it to go back in time, so she and Harry retrace their steps, are able to free Buckbeak so the execution doesn't go off, and then hide out for a while and use Buckbeak to fly up to the window where Sirius is waiting, while being held, free him, and let the two escape. They then run back to the hospital, just as Dumbledore is leaving, who knows exactly what they've been doing because he just told them to do it, because 10 points to Dumbledore. Locks them back in, and then proceeds to gaslight Professor Snape about what happened.
And the expectation is that we will cheer for this because we all hate Snape.
Well, I think the expectation that we're supposed to cheer for it because they saved 2 innocent lives from an unjust system. But, yeah, it's still a little bit like, yeah, you're still using some pretty not cool tactics there. Like, you wonder why Snape is like this when he works for Dumbledore, who clearly doesn't understand objectivity. Which actually might be why Snape has never gotten in trouble for playing favorites with the Slytherins, because he just has to point to Dumbledore and say, "Look at my example." Do you really want to tell me that Dumbledore is not playing favorites with everyone? But, yeah. So, school year ends, people go home, Harry gets a letter from Sirius, just catching up and stuff, and explaining a few things of, yes, I am your godfather, here's your permission slip to let you go to Hogsmeade next year, I sent you the Firebolt, the replacement broomstick that let you win the House Cup, and, well, the Quidditch Cup. There are so many cups. And, yeah, I missed that one in the recap because there's so much going on. But, yeah, Pettigrew escapes. Pettigrew was actually the secret keeper. Black switched at the last minute because he thought he was too obvious a secret keeper and no one would ever believe it was Pettigrew. Turns out he shouldn't have. He should have gone with the obvious choice because Pettigrew immediately went to Azkaban. So, yeah. Things are about to get much, much worse for the Wizarding World, but things are okay for the moment. And that's basically where it ends. Oh yeah, Lupin's been fired because Snape let slip he was a werewolf. And by let slip, I mean...
Actually, he didn't get fired. He resigned. At least in the book.
Yes, he resigned because he knew if he didn't he would get fired because parents would be calling for it.
Oh yeah. It was definitely a preemptive, I'm gonna do this before...
You can't fire me, I quit.
Yeah, basically. But... just gonna set the record straight that... it was not, it had not happened yet.
Yep. So apologies, this being a little bit of a rambly recap of the plot. I think we hit most of the main points. I know we've missed a few things, because we kind of went scattershot all over the place. But, there you go. That was Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. We will be back next time with some more in-depth looks at specific angles of it. So, any closing thoughts, Axion?
This is a surprisingly difficult boss. This is definitely point in the story overall where things start getting a lot more serious and a lot bigger
A lot more
stakes.
serious.
Oh, for the love of me.
I thought you did it on purpose.
I never pun on purpose, you know this.
Yes, you do. You just don't like to admit it.
Yeah, locked. Alright, this is really annoying.
I'd say we cut the video after you finish this boss, but we might be here a while.
Yeah, I was about to say, unless he dies this round, this is probably where we're going to need to... Oh, there he goes. Looks like he's gonna stay dead for good.
Why so serious? He says with his dying breath.
Alright, we will see you all next time.
Bye!